Chipotle is one of the places that they literally have paleo bowls.
Oh, yeah, take notes because y'all love Chipotle. Welcome to Wellness Wednesdays, where we talk about all things wellness and exactly what it means to be well. I'm Amy Simpson, and today I am so excited to be joined by my colleague, Adam Carpenter, who is going to be discussing his experiences with the paleo diet and giving us tips for anybody who might be interested in living that kind of a lifestyle. So Adam, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Amy. Happy New Year. I think it's an appropriate time to have the conversation since we're at the beginning of the year and so many people this time of year focus on resolutions or at least changing their lifestyle for the better.
Absolutely. It's the perfect time. I could not agree more. So we are not dietitians or nutritionists. We are here to just talk about our personal experiences. So let's dive into it. We're going to get all of Adam's experiences plus some tips, and then we're going to have a really quick fun game of true or false at the end of it, so stay tuned.
Let's do it.
All right, so Adam, first we're going to kick it off with, can you let everybody know exactly what the paleo diet / lifestyle is?
Very good. Well, I think you started off well by saying lifestyle. I think by people looking at things as a diet, it becomes a little bit more daunting. Okay. It seems more short term, but paleo is truly meant to be a lifestyle. Okay. So just in layman's terms, it's kind of like the caveman diet or carnivore diet. Okay. Paleo would be anything that a caveman or someone living through the Paleolithic era, I guess, could eat. So that would be obviously no processed foods, pretty much any protein that they could hunt. So any meat, fish, and then any produce whatsoever.
Okay. So is there anything else you can think of that's excluded that you just can't eat?
Absolutely. So pretty much the way you want to look at it, it's a natural lifestyle, right? So anything that is processed, so crackers, chips, anything that has pastas, anything that has been at all changed from its form. Now, you do have varying trains of thought as paleo goes as to what you can do, how stringent it is. Okay. Some people will say, for instance, that you can't have honey. Well, I'm not a believer in that in the way I follow it, because surely, like, you can go harvest fresh raw honey. So I think if you're doing something like that, you're fine. Some people will say that you can't eat potatoes. Again, I don't believe in that, because last I checked, a potato is a vegetable. Right. And I think personally potatoes get a bit of a bad rap in the kind of dieting, I guess you would say, dieting culture. Yeah. Potatoes are it's a root vegetable. It's no different than a carrot or a turnip. It's what we do to them and how we cook them that make them unhealthy. My grandma always says, and they grew up on a farm, that, hey, we were poor and we ate potatoes every day. And they were all lean, cut up, and didn't have an ounce of fat on them whatsoever.
Absolutely. I live by potatoes. Potatoes all day, every day, for every meal.
Yeah,
so
I'm with you 100%.
It is
I
what it
potatoes.
is. So you do make alterations depending on your particular preferences and lifestyle. So you don't cut out the potatoes. It's a few things that you do keep in there.
Yeah, well, you want to keep it to what it is. And the way I look at it in its truest form is it's anything that they could hunt. So any fish, any livestock, any protein, and again, any produce. So that's really the way that I take it.
So it differs from the carnivore diet in that you do add in some vegetables here and there.
Absolutely.
Okay, absolutely.
Yeah,
okay, so
absolutely.
What made you choose this particular diet over like Mediterranean or keto?
That's another great question. So for the most part, we live, my family, like the Mediterranean diet all the time. That's pretty much the way we eat. We don't eat a lot of processed foods. Now, we do have children, so needless to say, having 3 athletes, college-age kids, they kind of do their own thing. Yeah. So we almost have to buy 2 separate types of food. But the Mediterranean diet focuses pretty much just like paleo, but they add in a lot of legumes, rice, a lot of heavy oils like olive oil, things like that. Okay. So that's kind of where we are always. The way we kind of look at wellness, and especially when you look at how sedentary our lifestyle has become. You know, we're not working as farmers or like my grandparents who worked in the steel mills. You know, we're pretty much sitting behind a desk. We really don't need all of the carbs. And the way we eat from pretty much a daily basis is we have a whole protein, so call it beef, chicken, lamb, or fish for us. And then we have fresh vegetables. So we have a salad every single night, a fresh produce. And then we have typically potatoes or rice. Okay. So there's really nothing outside of that per se, what we eat.
So how long did you, because you're not, is this an ongoing thing, or was it a certain time frame that you stuck to it?
I would say the first time I did it, it's something that I've never done like all the way through. Mediterranean is kind of what we do pretty much on an everyday basis. But paleo, I'll typically do it in the beginning of the year when I really want to kickstart some weight loss. For me, I've tried a lot of different things, but this is just the one that works. It's a little tough to get used to it in the beginning because you're detoxing your body from all the sugars. Like, think about it, all the refined sugars, the additives, the chemicals. One of the other things is when you cook on that that lifestyle, you don't use any pre-seasoned, pre-mixed seasonings, for instance. So one of my favorites is adobo.
Yeah.
You can't use adobo, so you're going to season with salt,
That's
with
good
pepper,
to know.
with onion powder, with garlic, with cayenne, and
Okay.
you do them all separately so that you know you're using a true spice. Believe it or not, if you look at the back of most spice blends, there's a bunch of chemicals in there.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't know if they're anti-caking agents oftentimes,
Okay.
but again, we want to be very deliberate on what we put into our bodies.
That makes sense. Okay, so can you tell us a little bit about your experience as far as like your energy levels, your mindset?
Yeah.
Has it helped with any of that?
Yeah. So the first time I did it, and it's helpful because it's very hard to do it with someone. So I had my wife do it, and then my best friend. He was getting a little big, so I told him like, hey, and I was as well. I said, hey, my man, his name is Juice. I said, hey, Juice, let's go ahead and do this together. Okay. And I said, we'll encourage each other. Here's kind of what we'll do. We used a app called the Paleo Plate, which is an app that'll kind of give you a lot of recipes, give you some pretty good guidance. And there's a lot of apps out there. I bought a couple books on the paleo lifestyle. I think I was browsing the supermarket and there were a few in the magazine section. And we did it together. Initially, through the detox, I did get some headaches. And some things like that. But once you're about 7 to 10 days in, everything starts to change. Okay. You start to notice a huge change in your energy levels. Okay. I started sleeping very well. Any gastrointestinal or digestion issues that I had started to fade. And then also for all my fellas out there, you feel an increase in testosterone and virility. So I think all those things are good, and that's good for the ladies too.
Absolutely. Okay, so is there a certain amount of time that you have to do it in order to feel those things, or it's just going to be different for everybody?
So I can only speak to my experience, but I know that my best friend, he had a very similar experience as far as his results. I did it for 6 weeks. That year, and I lost 45 pounds in 6 weeks.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, wow. So that actually, so my next question is, what's the most rewarding part of living that lifestyle? I mean, obviously, though, the weight loss is great.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you know, weight loss is a byproduct, but I think it's about feeling good. You know, I'm 46 years old. I've got pseudo-grown children, 2 college-age kids and one senior in high school, and they're very active. You know, we snowboard, we play basketball, so I want to be able to keep up with them. As my sons get older and kind of being somewhat competitive with your young men, you want to make sure that you can still, you know, kind of let them know what time it is with dad.
Exactly,
you know,
you can keep up with them. I get it, absolutely.
But, you know, at a certain point, you have to be true with yourself. You know, we're the ones looking at ourselves when we get out of the shower, right? Right. You know, we're the ones that are feeling the things we're feeling when we're getting out of bed. Right. And I was to the point where I would wake up at night, and I have a pretty nice mattress, but I was sore, like my body would hurt. And I said to myself, I said, well, it's probably because of my weight. Yeah. And then even in my joints and my limbs, I could feel the weight. Yeah. So I said, I need to change some things about my lifestyle.
So you were overall just, in the beginning of it, just overall out of shape. And that's what it is. Like,
absolutely.
we feel that on the inside when we're out of shape, no matter how, because some people can look really, really fit on the outside, but be completely out of shape. So when you're sleeping and your body don't feel right and you're trying to move around, you have that loss of mobility, right?
Yeah, and let's be real, your thinness is not a barometer on how in shape you are.
Exactly.
You know, I know plenty of people that are thin that are not in shape, and people that are bigger that have got lots of stamina. But for me, it came down to how are you feeling, right? And if we really look at a lot of the chronic issues that people have, so in 1950, there was a study, and it said in 1950, 3 out of every 100 natural deaths were from cancer, right? So we're not talking about like somebody dying in a car accident or something like that. Right. Today, 60 some out of every 100 natural deaths is from cancer. Well, what's changed in that? What's changed is our lifestyle, and what's changed drastically is what we put into our bodies. Absolutely. So for me, it just came down to being more conscious of that. I wish that I could take credit for it, but it was my wife. You know, I'll level with you. She's the one on the organic. I'm like, hey, we could just buy this meat. It's cheaper. She's like, well, we're going to buy this one because it's organic. You know, you have to be able to put better ingredients in your body. And that's where it became really, it's sad because when you go grocery shopping and you try to buy healthy, and I know you guys embrace the vegan lifestyle, so I know you see it. It's a shame because to eat healthy is actually the more expensive way to eat. So you see the socioeconomic component of having a healthy lifestyle, and you just look at how blessed you are to live in an area where, I mean, right around me, I've got a fresh market, a Wegmans, an organic market, a Giant, an Aldi, and I think like a Safeway, right?
Yeah.
But for people that live in food deserts, people in the inner cities, they may have the desire to eat healthy, but they just may not have the means. And not even like, well, I don't have the means to be able to afford it because it's so much more expensive. They may not even have the access to it.
Yeah, absolutely. It becomes a convenience issue when you're living in a food desert.
Yeah.
So what was the most challenging part of this lifestyle for you?
The most challenging thing for me, I'll level with you, is the sweets.
Okay.
I'm a late night snacker. Well, I don't know late night, but right around like 10:30, I'll typically curl up with a bowl of popcorn, and then I finish that off with an ice cream bar.
I gotcha.
Yeah, but that's kind of like my routine. I like sweets and stuff at night, so not having sweets became a bit of a problem for me. But you have to find a way out of that, because here's what's going to happen. If you tell yourself, I'm never going to eat sweets, you're never going to be successful, right? We know we're going to eat sweets, and anybody that knows me here knows I like cake. I got a picture with every birthday cake for every month, right? So certain things you got to cut out. But what I found is I did like, and maybe peanut butter is a cheat, but a nut is natural, right?
Yeah.
So a nut is natural, and all you do is mash up nuts to make peanut butter.
Yeah.
So I would do what I called a peanut butter honey bomb.
Okay.
I love peanut butter, so I would take a big spoon, like take a heaping a spoonful of peanut butter. I then take my finger and kind of hollow out the inside, then take some honey, pour the honey into the hollowed out part, and then close it back over with the peanut butter. And I would sit there watching a movie and just kind of have a little bit off the spoon at a time.
Okay.
And it is very, very sweet. So as long as you eat it slow and you try to remain somewhat disciplined, you will kind of have that craving subside, at least for me.
Okay. So you got your sweetness kicked, like you were able to still find a way
and that's
through
pretty
that.
much like a every other night. Now, in the beginning, I didn't really do it just because I thought to myself, I need to be very, very disciplined in the beginning to even see some results. But by the time, you're 2 weeks in, 3 weeks in, and you've really got this thing down to a pattern, some of those things may tend to change.
Okay. So you weren't afraid at that point that it would kick you off your routine?
No, because like most things, what do they say? It takes 21 days to develop a habit.
Right.
So if you're 3 weeks in, your body is now craving, the bag of almonds that you brought to the office, right? Or the 2 or 3 clementines and a banana that you put in your briefcase on your way out the door. So by this point, your body wants you to have a salted cucumber, right? Or it wants you to have a salad, or it wants that steak, when you come home for lunch. And that's the thing. Don't be afraid to give your body what it needs. On the paleo, specifically, it's all about the protein, right?
Okay.
Protein and produce. The 2 P's, as I call them. So that protein is going to make you feel full. So for me, what we would do, and think about it, you're not going to come home and maybe have a big old ribeye, right?
Right.
But at Wegmans, they have these things called steaks called like perfect portions, where they're about like this thin.
Yeah.
But it's the size of a regular steak. They're just a little thinner. So I would typically take one of those out of the freezer in the morning, and at 4 o'clock or whenever, when I came back home for a late lunch, I'd throw that on, grill it up real quick, and eat that maybe with like an avocado or something.
Oh, okay. All right. So can you tell me a little bit about, we touched on the budget of it all. So I want to know, like, what are some budget friendly options on this, like living this lifestyle?
For sure. I think it's really a matter of what it is that you like. So if you're the type of person that you really like fish, that's probably not going to be that budget friendly just because of how expensive fish is. But we're steak people in my house, so we buy, to make it more budget friendly, what you can do is go to somewhere like a Costco or a Sam's, and you can get a whole New York strip before it's cut up, or a whole ribeye before it's cut up, and then you can really go in and portion those steaks out the way that you want. So rather than you paying $14.99 a pound or $12.99 a pound at the grocery store, now all of a sudden those ribeyes are $5.99 a pound.
Right.
So buying in bulk. Avocados aren't very expensive, but I think it's a food that stretches. Bananas aren't very expensive, but again, it's a very dense food that stretches. And eggs are your friend.
Yeah.
To me, I think a power meal is truly a sliced up avocado, 2 scrambled eggs, and a steak is, in my opinion, that is power food. That's a meal straight from God.
Yeah.
So avocados are cheap. Eggs, we eat the brown eggs, which are a little bit more expensive, but white eggs have been processed.
Okay.
So the brown eggs, they kind of are what they are, but even something in the morning like having 2 boiled eggs and a piece of fruit on the way out the door, boiled eggs are very high impact. So for me, like if I eat 2 scrambled eggs, I'm nowhere near as full as if I eat 2 boiled eggs.
Okay.
And they're mobile. So if you're running and you're rushing, you could just throw those in a bag and run out.
Kind of eat them on the go.
Yeah.
Okay,
absolutely.
so you would say that this can be a budget-friendly lifestyle.
Yeah, and then I think if you buy it in bulk, it certainly can. And then certainly, you can go to Costco, and I'll use Costco as an example because that's what we're members of, and you can get like a 10-pound bag of potatoes for $3.99, right?
Yeah.
So again, those are your friends. So potatoes, carrots, they don't cost a lot. But to really focus on those things, I think will help a little bit.
Okay.
Fish just becomes a little more expensive.
Yeah. So would you recommend just like completely avoiding drive-throughs? Like is there
Drive-thrus?
anything at restaurants or fast food places
that's a
where
very
you can
good
make this
question.
work?
So initially, I avoided any of that just because you're thinking, okay, buns, because you're not eating bread.
Right.
Bread is as processed as it gets.
Yeah.
It's flour, so you can't get it. So you're not having any of that. So what I found, and again, some of these apps are very helpful in helping you to identify paleo-friendly options.
Okay.
And Chipotle is one of the places that they literally have paleo bowls.
Oh, yeah, take notes because y'all love Chipotle.
So you can go to Chipotle and they will have bowls for pretty much whatever those diets are. And if you just say, I want a paleo bowl, they'll just go through the ingredients that are paleo friendly.
Wow.
So that's what I would do just to kind of feel like, okay, you're having something else. Now, I'm not a big fast food person, so I don't have McDonald's cravings or anything like that. My thing is Mexican food.
Okay.
You're going to have a little bit of discipline, but I find if you have that, if you have fruit, I like beef jerky and dried meat sticks and stuff like that. Have a couple of those in your car.
Okay. So just keep the car stocked up and you'll be fine.
And then just say to yourself, I'll be fine until I get home.
Absolutely.
Until I get home.
Absolutely. That's great. So what's a common misconception that you've heard about this lifestyle?
That's a good question. The common misconception to me was that you can't have satisfying meals and you can't snack. Okay. I thought when I started that I was really, again, and I think it's because of the things that I was snacking on, that I wasn't really going to be able to snack. But if you plan accordingly and you buy the right snacks, which are going to be whole foods, and you develop that habit, then yes, you can snack.
So overall, this is something that you would recommend somebody try out?
Absolutely. I would recommend it to anybody.
Yeah.
And again, it may not work for you. I think it's a matter of finding what works for you. So it may be Mediterranean's a better lifestyle for you, right? It may be that vegan's a better lifestyle for you. It may be that paleo is. But the thing is that you have forward momentum on a health and wellness lifestyle change. Because all it has to do is start with some small habits every day. And you can do small things like, reduce your, I'm a coffee person in the morning, so reduce your sugar. Reduce your sugar by a teaspoon the first month, right? And then by then that'll be sufficient. And then reduce that a little bit more. Maybe just go with cream. So there's little small things we can do every day. I think with paleo though, like anything else, it's important not to just look at it as a diet, but you still need to have that activity level as well. Especially because once you start, right around that 10 to 14 days, you're going to start shedding weight. Like after 14 days, the weight just falls off. Okay. At least this was my experience. 45 pounds in 6 weeks. Okay. And what happens is you could be in a situation, now you are eating a lot of protein, so it should help with keeping your muscle, but you want to be in a situation where you're still doing some type of aerobic activity or strength training just to make sure that when you start to experience rapid weight loss, you're not losing muscle and you're just losing the fat that you want to lose.
Okay, that makes sense. So with that being said, can you tell the people, what is your biggest tip for somebody that wants to try this lifestyle out?
Start today.
Start today?
Just start.
All right,
don't overthink it. Don't have paralysis by analysis, right? Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Just put that first step out, and then the next day, put the next step. And the other thing I would say is if it seems very daunting, and it did to me to say, I'm going to do this for 6 weeks, right? Then don't say that. Say, I'm going to do it today. And then once you get through today, say, you know what? I promise myself I'll do it again tomorrow. And if you look at it as a day-by-day challenge versus I have to do this for a year or I have to do this for a month, I think you'll have a lot better success. So for me, for instance, when I did it for that 6 weeks, my plan was only to do it for January. Okay. But I was in a groove, so I didn't stop. Like into January came and I'm like, hey, I like the way I'm feeling. I like the way I'm feeling. Need to I like the way I'm looking.
No need to change it if it's working. If it
and
feels
you don't
good.
See it as punishment at that point. You're like, hey, I'm on a roll. Like,
it doesn't feel like a chore now. It's just part of the lifestyle.
Absolutely.
All right, so now we are ready for our quick game of true or false. You ready?
I'm ready.
All right, so true or false. Once you started this lifestyle, you have to commit to it for the rest of your life.
False.
All right, number 2. True or false. Most people can try this diet out.
Everyone could try it out. True.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let
me take a step back.
Okay.
Depending upon what your physician says. So I do think it's important that certain things, if you have underlying health conditions, as with anything, before you start any dietary change, before you start an exercise regimen, talk to your physician to make sure it's okay.
True or false, this diet gave you more energy?
Absolutely true.
Absolutely true. All right.
I had the most energy that I've probably had in a decade.
And finally, true or false, you cannot enjoy yourself at parties if you have this if you're living this lifestyle?
You have to be a little bit more disciplined. I think that the way you'll enjoy yourself at parties much more is you'll look better. You'll look better, you'll feel better, and chances are you'll be in a new wardrobe because you won't be able to fit your old clothes.
Yeah, so false.
Yeah,
so
that's
false.
false.
Okay. All right, so you can still enjoy yourself at parties.
Absolutely.
All right, great.
Now, the one thing I don't know is how alcohol plays into paleo. I think it's probably prohibited because it's processed. Yeah. But during my journey, we didn't drink it all.
Okay, all right. So of course, with anything, you're going to do your own research and just make sure that you have a really good grasp on all the details, even what was not mentioned here today. But there was a lot mentioned. So Adam, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, and this was very, very enlightening. And anybody who's interested in the paleo diet, of course, go ahead and start today, like Adam said.
Very
and
good.
Be well.
Be well.